All right, so my name is Hannah McManus. I'm a planner with Raleigh Planning and Development in Long Range Planning Division. There's a few of my colleagues also in Long Range Planning who are also here. Jason Harden, you see in the office right now, and Christopher Golden. And our group manages small area studies from time to time. So these are planning studies focused on a variety of topics related to development. So that's things like land use, urban design, transportation, parks and greenways, and how they all intersect. And they typically focus on a smaller sub area of the city. So this one is focused on a portion of the Wakefield area centered around the Falls of Neuse corridor. And we can take a look at a map in a little bit. And so we're planning on doing several phases of engagement with the general public, including one that's going to get started in the next week or so, late April, early May. But before then, these beginning stages, we're reaching out to stakeholders in the area to try to tack on to our sort of existing conditions research, understand stakeholder perspectives, make sure we're starting out on the right foot. So we've already spoken to some of the schools and internally, public safety. We're planning on other conversations with parks and related organizations and transportation. I'm excited for this one because we have some HOA representative here, YMCA and Wakefield Methodist United. So excited for this conversation. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to do. Maybe I'll pause there and in case there are any questions about the study itself. Happy to answer those now or at any point. But if not, maybe I can hand it off to have you all introduce yourselves just briefly, your name and the organization would be great. Maybe Shane, do you want to start?
I'd be happy to. So my name is Shane Brown. I'm the director at the Kerr Family YMCA and have been here for maybe 2.5 years. Was at Camp Kanata before that, which is in Wake Forest, but love working at the YMCA. Love being a part of this community, and truly at the Y we get folks that come from geographically proximate places. You know, the people that come here because it is convenient for them, and so the ability for people to travel easily and get to us is important. And so just excited to see how we can contribute.
Great, thanks so much. How about John? You go next.
Yes, John McInterny. Thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm the community manager for the villages of Wakefield Plantation, and that is a large community with about 200 townhomes and about 246 family homes. And we have multiple parks within the community and a large swimming pool and playground. And I work for town property.
Great. Bill, introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, I'm Bill Marley. I'm resident of Wakefield, actually in the portion, the villages that John represents, the sub-association, that is, one of several in Wakefield. I'm also the vice president of the POA. I'm not sure if Craig Jonkers is on. I believe he was going to join. He's our president of the Wakefield POA at large, the homeowner association, I'm sorry. I'm interested in finding out, more about the plan, what you hope to achieve from it, property values, anything that we at the POA can do to help facilitate your efforts to grow and improve Wakefield. Thanks.
Yeah, great. And then last but not least, I think, Hannah.
Hey there. I'm Hannah McManus. I'm the pastor at Wakefield United Methodist Church. And hello to Shane, the Y housed us for over 10 years. And now we are upfitting the old Jelly Beans building. which we were able to purchase after Jelly Beans closed. And we're still figuring out how things will work in that location. Our membership is probably 50-50, this part of Raleigh, Wakefield, Bedford neighborhoods, and then various neighborhoods in Wake Forest. Very community focused, very involved with the area, especially elementary schools. So traffic and accessibility is really important to us, and just working in the community.
That's great. Yeah, that's great to hear. Amanda, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Amanda Morell. I'm a landscape architect and urban designer with a firm called Stantec. We are the lead consultant for the Wakefield Small Area Study. So just want to thank y'all for taking time out of your day to help us learn a little bit more about your community as we're sort of stepping into the early phases of this project. We certainly come in with national knowledge and best practices, but this is not a one size fits all kind of project. This is about Wakefield and what's best for it and its future. And so we like to really listen during these conversations about, things you love that you don't want to see change, and things that maybe are opportunities, as Bill, you mentioned, for improvement in and maybe getting around a little easier for folks. So I'm going to actually turn my screen off, my video off, because I'm going to share my screen in a digital workspace that's called Mural. And it's basically our online platform that we're using to record our notes and conversations. We've got some maps in there that we can talk over. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my video off. And I do that, so hopefully there's no lag in my audio. All right, very good. So this is the mural for the Wakefield project. This is the space where our team and city staff and our stakeholders are all sort of brainstorming together, looking at maps. We've got our timeline that Hannah mentioned sort of laid out with different deliverables and things that are coming up in the next couple of months. And as Hannah mentioned, we've been talking to some folks over the last couple of days, the schools, the police officers and firefighters that are serving your community. But today is about civic organizations and groups. And we just, we've kind of framed out a little bit of a conversation starter here with some of these headings. We've got a map that we can mark up. We actually have indicated some of the neighborhoods that you all maybe represent, so that we can understand sort of where you're coming from and maybe how you're getting around the Wakefield area. But the orange outline really indicates our focus of study. So Falls of Neuse, of course, Capitol Boulevard is sort of a boundary line. And then we've heard an awful lot about Wakefield Pines Drive over the last couple of days, certainly from the schools. We've heard a lot. So I anticipate that, Shane, you've got a few things to tell us about that roadway as well. So looking forward to that. This is, there's nothing formal about the questions we're going to ask. We really just want to give you all a chance to give us your perspective. And if they happen to fall into one of these buckets that we have on the screen, all easier for us to categorize them. But if not, that's okay too. We can draw outside the lines here a little bit. But I would love, maybe Shane, for you to start with the YMCA. Give us, I think you gave us a little bit of an overview of who you're serving, but maybe share, anecdotally, any challenges that y'all face from a, folks trying to get to you safely kind of a perspective.
For sure. And Hannah mentioned it, and I appreciate that you mentioned conversations with the schools. I don't think you can have this conversation at all about this area without acknowledging and recognizing the schools. They're a significant portion of real estate that is close to us, and they really affect and impact a lot of the things that happen for this area. It's been a different year with COVID, of course, and kids have been out of school, and now they're back in school and sort of in school and everything, but we do anticipate things getting back to normal. But one thing that I really didn't realize until kids started to go back to school, because I kind of forgot about it, was the way that the traffic is in the afternoons as it relates to parents picking up their kids. And I don't know if anybody has shared this with you all yet, but if you zoom in just a little bit there, so directly across from the Y is Kelway Drive, and that's a a real conduit for people in the neighborhood. A lot of people travel north and south there on Kelway. And in the afternoon, what you end up with is a ton of folks that park along the side of Kelway that are trying to pick up their kids from the elementary school because they don't want to wait in the carpool line. So what they do is they park there along what would be the right-hand side of Kelway as the cars are coming south. And so to the left on our screen, they park there along the side of the road, and then their kids will leave the elementary school and then use the crosswalks and that sort of thing to cross over and get in their parents' car without the parents having to wait for the carpool line. And so it creates a bunch of challenges in the afternoons in particular because of that congestion that will happen in a way that it probably shouldn't. It's just parents trying to cheat the system. And we have in the past had problems with those same parents parking in our parking lot in the afternoons, tried to pick up their kids. They park on what would be the extreme left-hand side of the parking lot in the picture, and then their kids walk over from the elementary school. And we even at one point had like an impromptu carpool line in our own parking lot with kids walking over from it. And so the afternoons with the elementary school, there's a lot that can happen, and so that's a different time of day. There's a lot of foot traffic in the neighborhood, which is a great thing, and there's actually great like bike lanes and walking lanes for folks as they come up and down Kelway, and so we see that a lot. I will say I've been here, 2.5 or 3 years, have seen several accidents at that intersection there at Kelway and Wakefield Pines. It's a traffic light that is there, and oftentimes what seems to be the cause is cars on Wakefield Pines don't realize that the traffic light has changed or is there, and then they hit a car that is crossing there at Kelway. And so of course, that's the closest intersection to us, but we see it a lot. Also, where you'll see Sycamore Grove right there, that is a cut through for folks. I'm just trying to share knowledge that I've got. Folks can travel down Sycamore Grove, kind of past the YMCA, and then down Townfield Drive to reach Falls, and folks oftentimes do. And so you get this traffic pattern of folks going through the neighborhood. They just put in some big traffic humps on Sycamore Grove to try to slow people down, but that ends up being an exit for the neighborhood for folks onto Falls, and an entrance if you're traveling north on Falls, at least towards the Y or towards our neighborhood. GPS will tell you to turn there and come up through the neighborhood rather than going up to Wakefield Pines. You also have the Big Sheets gas station there at the corner of Wakefield Pines and Falls, which is new and has changed some of the way that things have happened here in the neighborhood, because of traffic at the gas station and that sort of thing. And so that's a kind of new amenity, but seems to be popular.
We heard that was the hangout.
I don't know about that because I don't hang out there.
Well, I guess after school kids is what we're hearing. They're either going to McDonald's or Sergio's or Sheetz.
Well, and so here's a thing. So after school kids is an important demographic for us, and for our YMCA, we're part of the YMCA of the Triangle. There's 20 branches, 20 facilities. We have a significant teen population, especially after school, because of the high school and because of the middle school. And we even have different policies for teenagers at our branch than any of the other branches because of the teenagers that would just come into our building. We figured out at one point that parents from the middle school were paying for a family membership so that their middle schoolers could come into our building after school because it was cheaper than paying for an after school program somewhere. And so we would have 60 or 80 middle schoolers in the building with no supervision and no program to be involved in. And so we had to change some of the ways that we were operating so that we could get kids into a program or create something for them to do. We get a lot of kids that walk over from the high school to play basketball in our gym. And so we get a lot of folks that are members for that reason. That is good. We also have a lot of, before COVID, we would do a lot of guest passes. So teenagers that live in the neighborhood would invite their friends to come to the Y and play basketball in particular. So a high teenage population use for us because of the schools right there. We do also see, like every business, some vandalism and theft and things like that might happen in our parking lot. There is a lower portion of our parking lot that kind of goes down, I guess it's Townfield Drive there as you go past us. And so where you've got your little arrow kind of pointing down, there's a lowest parking lot right there. And that for us is not a very useful parking lot. It is too far away for the people that want to walk into our building. Sometimes we will park our buses down there, but then the buses get broken into and vandalized because it's just not well supervised. And so long term, I'd like for us to find a better solution for that parking lot. But that's, an us problem, a YMCA problem. I don't know if that really matters to you all or not, but it is a parking area. We've ended up putting cones down there right now just to try to keep people out of it. I was frequently finding people down there that were smoking or, doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Sure. Okay. So does the upper parking area then serve all of your daily needs for staff and
It
guests?
does for
Okay.
staff and members. It stays very busy. We're doing outdoor fitness right now because of COVID, and people are wanting to be further, and they don't want to wear masks, and so we can exercise outside. We are probably creating some challenges in the neighborhood because we're playing music for our fitness classes. We're trying to be good neighbors, and I've given many of our neighbors my personal cell phone and said, please call me or text me, if it's too loud, because sometimes the instructors don't realize how loud it is. We try to tell them what volume to set it at, but you'll see directly across the street from us, there's a cul-de-sac. And so those houses that to the north, those houses that back up to Wakefield Pines, like they might hear our music extra loud. There's also those apartments there where you see Oakwood View Drive. Sometimes they get our music, and so we're trying to be really good neighbors and trying to keep the volume down. And to anybody that calls, we try to address it by turning the volume down and talking to our instructors about it. But we are likely to continue living in that space right now because of COVID, and it's going to take some time before we get back to normal and end up moving all of our classes back inside.
I gotcha. That's a good interim solution, though. That's great.
We're trying. We lost about half of our members through COVID, and our usage is down by about 60%. We are just now beginning to climb out, and so just now this month we have more members than we had last month, and that's the first time that's happened in a year.
That's great. All right. Well, that gave me a lot to put on the map. So
I'm sorry, you did a really
great.
good job.
These are all great bits of local knowledge that will help our team as we're evaluating some of these roadways and figuring out ways to make it safer. You mentioned
trails from the school that cut back, I think, from the elementary school towards Townfield. I know somewhere in there's a trail that kids take when they're getting home from school, and it's through the woods somehow.
So maybe not formalized, but
that's right.
It's there. Okay. All right. That's good. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else want to jump in and build on what Shane started? Hannah, I know you mentioned y'all are moving physical locations. I actually had the church located over here with the Y because that's how it still shows up in the mapping on Google, but I've moved you over to Common Oaks Drive, so I hope that's the right location.
Yes, and if you know how to convince Google to change our location, I'd love the help.
I am powerless with Google, I'm afraid to tell you, but we can get it right on our maps.
Well, yeah, Shane, it was really interesting hearing all of that, and I would just back up everything that Shane said. We were only there on Sunday mornings, but I live in Bedford and sometimes would go to the Y during the week, and I witnessed some of those same problems. At our new location, we've also got a large parking lot, and Jelly Beans didn't have a lot of business or traffic from their business in their parking lot for quite some time, and it became much like the Y's lower parking lot. It was a place for people to come and just sit. We find all kinds of stuff in our parking lot, from midnight visitors. We also have police officers who come and fill out their reports or take their breaks or whatever in the parking lot, and that's really helped. And Shane, I would encourage that for your lower parking lot. It's really helped us. The other thing for the community, Common Oaks Drive is a cut through to Capitol Boulevard. You can skip, 3 lights, I think, if you cut there onto Ponderosa, and people will come from Capitol down Ponderosa onto Common Oaks. You've got a different name. It's the service road is what I'm referring to.
Okay.
And traffic will fly down that road sometimes, not going up because it's a really steep hill. And I notice it, Sunday mornings we are still having our services outdoors, and that's when I really notice the traffic noise because it's really loud if someone's really flying down that road or gearing to go up the hill. So, and it's not, I wouldn't call it a major problem, but I do know if, things change significantly with the Falls of Neuse Capitol Boulevard intersection, if that service road and access to Capitol Boulevard stays, I would anticipate, a little more trouble with traffic and speeding right there. And, right now we don't have a lot of children in and out of the church, but we hope to have a preschool in probably just about a year. So I would worry, if a child were to run out or something, that would be a real concern.
Absolutely.
But right now we're enjoying the visibility and just the access to Common Oaks, and we're just visible enough, but we're not on a main drive, and we don't have the school traffic problems that Shane, you were describing. But we do sometimes have kids come and sit and have their lunches or whatever if it's later, and burning rubber, as my son says. We have a lot of donuts in the parking lot, and they're not from Dunkin'.
Oh, mercy. Well, it looks like you've got a sidewalk on each side, but
Yes.
maybe no dedicated bicycling facilities to the church location.
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and right where you are, that's where people speed up coming down that hill and gear up going up the hill.
I gotcha. Okay.
I have not noticed any problems with that intersection with what is that, Forest Pines?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I see
We're
Forest
just so
Pines,
happy to be there that we haven't,
Do y'all have any site improvements planned, or y'all just upfitting the building at this point?
At this point, we're upfitting the building and we're adding some sidewalks in the back, which means more green space in the parking lot. And, at some point, we'll probably take down that hedge and put up trees. But, we're not there yet.
I gotcha.
And I think that hedge coming down would help us a lot. We welcome people to come and park in the parking lot, have their lunch. It's a huge space and it's quiet and private. So.
Okay. Do y'all have a site plan that either Hannah may have access to already, or that we could see so that we sort of know your intent on some of the green spaces?
Sure. We're actually on May the 4th, we're applying for we're going through the permitting process for the upfitting of the building, and that will include the green space changes. I don't have the green space changes yet. That's one of the last things we're working on.
Okay, great.
But not much on the outside is going to change other than more windows and doors.
Okay, that'll be great.
And our sign instead of the jelly bean sign.
Oh, you don't want to keep jelly beans? No.
Believe me, people still stop by looking to go skating, and it's like, wow, it's been closed for well over a year now.
Okay, I gotcha. It's a good way to start a conversation, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
A
go.
lot of disappointed children, though.
Gosh, that's hard. All right. Well, that's great, Hannah. Thank you for sharing all that. And, I think I'll come back certainly to Shane and Hannah, particularly when we talk about outreach for this project and this, we want to put out some surveys and some interactive maps so that the public and everybody who's living in these neighborhoods around the study area can give us really direct and pointed feedback on an interactive map that'll be online. But we might, touch base with y'all again to see how y'all are reaching your congregations and your guests at the Y. So we'll circle back to that at the end. But I'd love to hear from Bill.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, just brief background. We've lived here since Wakefield, was first platted in, late 1999. And so I've seen a lot of changes, including the, ultimate link across the river, extension of Falls of Neuse, which helped tremendously. Well, helped and I guess helped more than hurt, but at least it took the traffic off of Wakefield Pines in front of the schools. So that's been really helpful for traffic flow. I guess my main interest would be, Capital, NCDOT is going, I believe, to eventually widen Capitol Boulevard, or at least have 6 lanes of limited access expressway where you wouldn't have any traffic signals, which probably means an interchange for New Falls of Neuse and Capitol Boulevard. I'm curious when that happens, how much right-of-way it will take, and also how it will impact the commercial area, which is the bulk of your study area in there. Having, been here for 20 years, there used to be a Kroger. Now it's a Galaxy Fun House, whatever it's called. There's just been a little bit of a shift in the type of commercial businesses there. The area is full of banks, Jiffy Lube, Starbucks, Moe's, the shopping center area. There are a lot of out parcels, though, that are still not built on even after 20 years, and I've often wondered why that is. And I think part of it may be Kroger, when they left in 2006, part of the reason was they bought Harris Teeter, and that's about the time the Harris Teeter opened in Wakefield. And the only other grocery store in Wakefield is Food Lion. Also, they expressed concern that they had a little bit of an access issue, despite, the fact that they were doing a good business. But I think my point is that it would be nice to, see or find out why those out parcels haven't yet been built on, whether it's an access issue or visibility issue. Personally, I suspect it could be that there's not much visibility from either Capitol Boulevard or from New Falls of Neuse. And that brings up something that one of our members in the HOA has mentioned, that we do, and this, certainly is a phenomenon not only to Wakefield, it's around the city everywhere, but we do have beggars, oftentimes at the intersection of Capitol and New Falls of Neuse. And that's not necessarily an issue so much as the fact that I've heard that we do have, quote, tent cities. There are, I guess, homeless folks that are living in the woods between New Falls of Neuse and Harris Teeter. And I think there's one other place perhaps in Wakefield. You don't see it because it's just not visible for all the trees. But and I know we love our trees in Raleigh, but I wonder sometimes if thinning them or doing something to open up, Wakefield to drivers along Capitol Boulevard might help to enhance the viability of the commercial area, because that's really all that's left for Wakefield to be built out is the commercial areas that are not yet developed. So that's just sort of, one of the reasons I joined the POA, and as well as, property values are certainly finally beginning to climb here, as, the area around Wakefield and Wake Forest and the greater, zip code area expands. So that's sort of my input to the conversation. I'll be glad to, answer questions or, join into any other part of the conversation as we go on.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Bill.
Sure.
Those are things only a local who lives there could be able to tell us. When I look at this area of trees, I would not assume that there were people, living in there. Is this the area you're talking about? There's the teeter.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. There's a buffer. It's not really that far. It's sort of a drainage area. It dips. The elevation of Falls of Neuse is higher than most of the trees, but I imagine when the intersection is converted to an interchange, that will probably cause a bigger footprint and some of the trees to be removed. I'm not sure if DOT is planning a single point urban interchange like they have up in Wake Forest on the NC 98 bypass, or if it'll be a more conventional one. We'll have to wait and see. But that also brings up, whether Ponderosa Road, the I guess old US 1 that parallels Capitol that was mentioned earlier, might be extended to help sort of serve, the commercial area of Wakefield. I'm not sure if DOT has plans for that or not, but
Gotcha. Good question to ask.
I think the large project for capital expansion was postponed due to DOT's financial issues, but now I think the revenues are improving, and I'm not sure which year of the program is still to begin, but I want to say in about 3 or 4 years, and then the environmental process takes a while, and then so it'll be a while before we see physical changes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great little tidbits.
But Wakefield's a great place to live. I mean, sure.
I was going to ask that question. There's this perception that is the case, right? That Wakefield is a safe, middle to upper class, part of Raleigh to live in. Is that perception, you would say, what your reality is?
I think so. What we hear about is it's sort of, a mini city in and of itself. I mean, it's what I would think 2,700 residential units. It has, police, fire, parks, schools, all the, it's like a small city in and of itself, or a small town. The competition for a long time was Heritage Wake Forest, which is similar, just smaller over in Wake Forest. Wakefield, though, is beginning to show its age. It's the oldest homes are about 20 years old. And, the streets, the residential streets, don't get a lot of heavy truck traffic, but, we do get UPS and garbage and, trucks, and they're starting to sort of show their age. And I don't know when they might be on the city's resurfacing schedule, but that might be something, to consider, in the background. It's not an imminent need by any means. But yeah, the perception is, I think that Wakefield is, I'm trying to remember the term I've heard. It's, it's got something for everybody. It has, the golf club. It has, the individual sub-associations, their retirement housing. There's a variety of different types of housing in Wakefield. The sheets, I know a lot of people weren't too happy that came in. Personally, I don't mind it. I think they do a good job taking care of their product. Along Falls of Neuse, we've had a few businesses open up sort of in front of the food line recently, finally. But there are still a couple of out parcels there that haven't been developed yet. And as long as they're vacant, you never really know what's going to go there. So if they get developed, then so that's sort of my curiosity as to. And I don't know if you guys have reached out to the commercial entity that sort of oversees the area up around where Galaxy Fun Park and all of that is. But, you know, if they, I'm sure they might have some input into your process. I don't know who exactly it is, but I wouldn't leave them out of the discussion if you can help it.
Yeah. Do you happen to know what the name of that entity is? We've done a little bit of research trying to find it.
Not off the top of my head. I probably should, but I don't. I could probably find it for you too and maybe send it to Hannah.
Yeah, if you do happen to know what it is, that'd be great. I agree. It really should be. Would love to have a conversation with them as well, since they probably have a wealth of knowledge about how they foresee that area in the future.
What they might like to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also noticed
Shane
has his hand up very politely. I didn't want us to forget that.
Well, I don't want to jump in front of anybody else, but as I was listening to Hannah talk in particular, and I thought about my day yesterday as I was leaving the Y, and I had several places to go, and I didn't have a lot of time to get there before a meeting, and the whole thing really hinges on that intersection of Falls and Capitol, and that's just a bad intersection almost any time of the day. Like, it will eat your time up, and you'll have to wait several cycles for that light, especially if you're traveling. You know, if I'm looking at this map, if you're traveling east on Falls, and I needed to make a left on Capitol, and I was like, man, that light is going to take forever. And even when I come to work at the Y, I avoid Capitol Boulevard, and we find that our members try to avoid Capitol Boulevard too, and almost Capitol Boulevard is like a wall that divides the community, and traveling from east to west on Capitol, like across Capitol, is hard. So I live on the east side of Wake Forest. I travel west on Highway 98 to get to work. I don't turn on Capitol. I turn left into Wakefield and then end up coming down Kelway. And I know early on when I started here at Carr, somebody said, don't go to Capitol, come down Kelway. You know, that's the quickest way to get there. And so a lot of people will do that to avoid that interchange at Falls and Capitol. And so whatever the future is for Capitol Boulevard will be really significant in the small area study that you're doing, because that intersection really drives a lot of the other traffic around. And then something else that occurred to me is that I use Waze a lot when I drive, and Waze has started to tell me, instead of going down Capitol and then making a right on Falls, if I was coming south on Capitol and then making a right on Falls, Waze is telling me to turn onto, I'm looking at it now, onto Corona Boulevard off of Capitol, and then to make a left on Forest Pines, and then you take Forest Pines south to Falls. And so you're kind of cutting through that area where the Harris Teeter is, and all of those things. Like, you're just driving all the way down Forest Pines to avoid Capitol Boulevard, and then avoid that intersection at Capitol and Falls.
Wow.
Yeah, what's happened is
how smart those apps are.
Oh yeah.
What's happened briefly as the traffic has increased and development has increased. What happened first is when Falls of Neuse was extended across the river, people coming from north of Wake Forest to get to 540 to go to work in Research Triangle Park would go down Falls of Neuse to access 540, as opposed to all the way down Capitol to access it. And I think once we do get an interchange of some sort at Capitol and New Falls and Neuse, that will take a lot of the pressure off of the existing interchange at the 98 bypass and Capitol Boulevard, because people are using that to get across Capitol. And even with, I think it's probably looking like a super street in front of Wegmans, where you have the string of traffic signals where you make a right to make a left. You know, I think it's probably still going to be preferable to a lot of people to use that interchange as opposed to existing at grade intersection of Capitol and New Falls of Neuse.
That's a good point.
And I would add to that, again, emphasize again how much Ponderosa, that service road, is used as a cut through. And it really helps, I would think, with that traffic at Falls of Neuse and Capitol. And I like somebody said,
I've used it before myself.
Traffic. using that. A lot of big trucks come down and actually park on Common Oaks right there.
The tractor trailers, yes, they park. They're not supposed to, but they park overnight. They do. Sometimes
It's
several
the
nights.
same ones over and over.
Gotcha. Well, John, I'd love to hear your perspective as well, sir.
Okay. Well, the villages of Wake Forest is, I think, would be very good. You were talking about of a survey. Our demographics would be excellent. There are single men and women in some of the housing. There's quite a few people that are raising families with children, in grade school or high school or even in college. We also have, especially in the townhome community, a significant number of people that are retired. So it would, I think they would all be very interested in the various amenities that you're talking about and the trails and the different places that they can actually get out into nature. I think one of the things they like about our community, I'd echo what Bill said, is just that it's so diverse in the amount of amenities that we have to offer. For the villages, it's not as great as the master, but we still have a very nice pool and a clubhouse that people can rent out, and we have a playground, and we have multiple parks spread out throughout the community. We did have a couple of reports of homeless people trying to set up. I don't think it was as extensive as what Bill was talking about, where there was a little tent city, but that is, I guess, a concern. People would be trying to sleep overnight in one of our parks, but we would go through when it was reported to us and ask the person to leave and report it to the police. And we didn't have any instances of reoccurring. It would be more like a one night or a couple of nights somebody was in there, was reported. And once we asked them to leave, they would, I'm sure, go to a different area. But that might be just passing the problem on. We do have the police come to our parking lot also to fill out the reports, and we think that is a good sign. It's right at the front of our community, so that helps. We also hire York Security to ride through both the townhomes and the single families. So they're riding through and reporting anything that they would see unusual. But I don't think crime is a significant concern there. It's a concern that people don't want to have crime, but we don't have an issue with crime. I mean, we don't have a lot of break-ins that are reported. Some speeding cutting through the community, but just the nature of our streets, they wind around a little bit. So it's not as bad as in some other places in Wakefield. One thing that we're working on just recently is some of our common area borders along streams and creeks. There's one on Martin Oak where it feeds under Falls of Neuse into huge culverts. They're probably about, 6 or 7 feet in diameter. They're very large culverts going underneath the street there. And so we're having a project we're doing right now, just trying to make sure that all our common area bordering that is clear, and that water that comes from the streets typically daylights well before it gets to the stream, and then runs along various swales to get down to the creek. So we're making sure those are clear. Having a little bit of an issue where sometimes homeowners will dispose of their clippings from their bushes or branches that come from the trees, and that could cause some damming and cause something to back up. So that's something that we've been working on and trying to keep clear. But in general, I'd say the community is really likes the area. I would. Bill's not unusual for as long as he's lived here. I've met countless people that say they've been here 10, 15, 20 years or more. So I think when people move here, they like it, and when they do move, they often stay within the community. They'll just move from one house to another house in the community. So that's another sign that people really like where they are. The only issues with parking that we would have, once again, is just where we border onto a commercial area.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I should have muted my phone there. It depends on what kind of business is in that comes in. Some of the businesses, the parking they have is going to be fine for them. Other business, especially if it's a restaurant or a bar, it might have some peak hours, and if so, then some of the traffic parking may overflow into our community, which we get signs at our clubhouse saying not to do it. We haven't, we don't want to go to the point of putting a chain up or something like that, because we want it to be open and easy access for all the members of the community. But that has been a little bit of a concern of people coming in there. So once again, with the police in York coming through it, I think that minimizes some of that issue.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, John, that you see a lot of people in your neighborhood walking and biking as a mode of maybe get from one place to another, or is it more recreation focused?
I see a lot of people walking. Be honest with you, I don't see as many people riding bikes as I would have thought. I live downtown, and I see people biking all the time to get around. But I do see a significant number of people walking, both recreational walking in groups, just walking several blocks and coming back, but also people with a backpack or carrying a bag, so that they might have actually walked over to the commercial area because it's so convenient, and coming back.
Okay, that's great. All right. We're getting close to the end of our hour, so I want to be respectful of your time and make sure everybody got to say everything that they wanted to. But I do want to ask about outreach, and I think it sounds like we've got a pretty willing group that can share with your listservs, and to get both the interactive map and the online survey out in a couple of weeks when that becomes live. And then subsequently there will be an online public workshop with various stations talking about some of these options and opportunities that people can react to. So what are the ways y'all are finding success in reaching the people that you have to reach probably on a weekly basis? We've heard Nextdoor is big. We've heard Twitter is big, particularly for the schools. Are y'all using any internal communication methods that we could tap into?
We have a website for the community, and through the website we can send out blast emails. There is a Facebook page, but that's not officially with the association. That's more like the Nextdoor sites, where it's just voluntary, where people get online, and typically if there's a question that was asked, a board member or one of the committee members may chime in on the conversation to answer the question or something like that. But official communication either goes out by U.S. mail or postcards, or we use email for direct.
Or do you find, John, that you do have a need to do both the e-blast and the postcard in some areas of your neighborhood?
I do, because of the demographic. Getting back to the demographics again, there are some retired people there that do not have computers, and so if you just used emails, you wouldn't get to them. And then there are other people that all they do is look at their emails, or we can also text people if they'll look at an email or a text, but if you send them a letter or a postcard, they may or may not read it, and I don't think they intentionally throw it away, but they probably take their mail and sort it and make a junk pile in invoices, and
Yes,
even their invoices, they're trying to minimize what they get in the mail. So like a lot of times people say, we mail something out, and somebody will come back and say, well, I never got that. Can you just email it to me or send it to again? But I would say the majority of the younger people, and I put younger anybody under 50, likes email, and over 50, it's probably split. There's some people that still would like email, and other people that just have the hard copy.
Good deal. Shane, how are you reaching folks?
Yeah, so we use Facebook often for things. We've got a bunch of different Facebook groups here through the Y. And then also we put up things in our lobby or at our access desk where people are scanning in.
Okay, great. And you'd be willing for us to give you some stuff?
For sure. People like free stuff. Recently I think we helped town of Wake Forest. They were trying to get out information about the regional transportation survey, and they gave us some masks that were kind of flashy looking, and we put them out in a big bowl with a flyer about the transportation survey, and people certainly grabbed the masks.
Maybe not all took the survey, huh?
Right, maybe not, who knows. But it did have the logo for the whatever triangle transit thing on there, so it's kind of funny.
Okay, and I'm assuming y'all do e-blasts as well?
We do, but I'll tell you that our association is pretty reluctant about the things that we put in the email. Like, they don't want to overwhelm people, and so like anything that we send in an email, especially if it was something that went to all of our members, they really want like high level approval on that.
Okay.
But we do send out a monthly newsletter, and we might be able to get something into the monthly newsletter, like a paragraph in there.
Okay, great. I'll let Hannah follow up with you on deadlines for that so that we kind of know that moving forward. Bill, did you have some ways to communicate with your folks?
Sure. We have an email blast similar to how John's our sub association communicates. We also have, of course, the annual meeting, which is not going to be too far out. I think they're in the process of scheduling it.
Okay.
So we can e-blast. We can maybe a couple other ways as well to communicate to the Wakefield population at large.
Excellent.
Sure.
Pastor Hannah, do you have any ways?
Yes, we primarily through Facebook and our Facebook group, our website, and we have an e-blast that goes out weekly. And if we have something special going on, like for Holy Week, we had an email every day, which gets opened about 35% of the time, which is pretty good for an email. And then, when COVID recedes, we also communicate with handouts, bulletins, and announcements in our service, which is, the most effective way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even if we do all of that, there'll still be somebody that says, well, I didn't know.
I didn't get to give my opinion. Well, I think between everybody on this call and all the other folks we've been talking about, Hannah and the city will be in a good position to certainly get the word out as best we can, for sure. So those are great ideas, and we will certainly use that and reach back out when those things are ready and available.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to stop screen sharing and turn my video back on so I can say thank you for all your great information. And if you think of anything else that you think might be helpful, certainly reach back out to Hannah McManus, project manager for the city. I know she'd appreciate that. Or anybody else, kind of like you mentioned, Bill, you really need to talk to this person. If you think of any of those other people or contacts that you might be able to get for us, certainly send that along to Hannah. We'd love to have those conversations as early as possible before we get too far down any one road. So just thank y'all and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. It was
Okay.
enlightening. Thanks.
All right, great. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.